There are pains that pass, and there are pains that become permanent. Not because they keep happening, but because they were never truly processed. In the universe of Naruto, few characters carry a pain as total as Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke didn't just lose people, he lost his entire world at once. Family, belonging, history, future. Everything ended in a single night. And when a child loses everything at the same time, they don't just suffer. They reorganize themselves around pain. The massacre of the Uchiha clan is not just a traumatic event, it is a structural rupture of the child's mind. Sasuke had no time to process grief. There was no farewell. There was no emotional explanation. The mind does what it can to survive. It freezes parts of itself. It simplifies the world. And so a silent belief is born. If everything can end like this, then nothing is safe. From that moment on, Sasuke's world stops being a place of bonds and becomes a field of threat. Sasuke survived. And that alone is already a pain. Psychology calls this survivor's guilt. Why did I stay? Why did they die? What does that say about me? Sasuke walks among people but lives apart from them, because no one there shares that night. No one understands that silence. Sasuke's loneliness is not a choice. It is a consequence. When you lose your entire clan, you lose the emotional language that connected you to the world. Here something decisive happens. Pure pain is unbearable for too long. It needs to be organized, and the mind finds a dangerous but effective solution: to turn pain into hatred. Hatred gives direction. It gives focus. It gives energy. Without it, Sasuke would collapse. Revenge is not perversity. It is an attempt to keep the psyche functional. As long as there is a target, the pain does not spread. Sasuke does not seek power out of ambition. He seeks power out of fear. Fear of being weak again. Fear of losing once more. Fear of never being able to protect anything again. In trauma psychology, control becomes synonymous with safety. Being strong means this will never happen again. But the more power he seeks, the farther he gets from his own emotions. Feeling hurts, feeling reminds, feeling breaks. So Sasuke chooses to harden. Sasuke is not cold because he feels nothing. He is cold because he feels too much. Emotional distance is anesthesia. If I don't connect, I won't lose. If I don't love, I won't suffer. But this has a high psychological cost: the gradual loss of felt humanity. Sasuke remains alive, but increasingly less whole. When Naruto, Sakura, and Kakashi try to get close, they represent something dangerous: the possibility of a new clan. And for someone traumatized, this is not comfort. It is a threat. Because losing again would be unbearable. So Sasuke cuts the bonds before they can take root. Not out of hatred, but out of self-protection. Everything Sasuke represses, fear, sadness, helplessness, turns into shadow, and the shadow, when ignored, begins to direct life. Sasuke believes he is choosing his own path, but in truth, he is being pushed by unprocessed pain. He does not run toward evil. He runs from emptiness. Maybe you haven't lost a clan, but maybe you've lost an emotional family, a safe childhood, a sense of belonging. Maybe you've hardened too, closed yourself off, pulled away, not because you wanted to, but because it was the only way to survive. And like Sasuke, you may also have confused strength with isolation. Deep down, Sasuke doesn't want to destroy. He wants the pain to stop. But no one taught him how to suffer without losing himself. No one taught him how to live after the end. Sasuke's tragedy is not hatred. It is having gone through the worst possible loss alone. For a long time, hatred was Sasuke's psychological pillar. Without it, the pain of the massacre would return in its raw form. But there comes a point when hatred no longer sustains. It begins to corrode from the inside. Revenge fulfilled did not bring peace, only silence. And silence, for someone traumatized, is dangerous. Because within it, emotions return unfiltered. Redemption begins here, when the armor falls, without hatred, without mission, without enemy. Sasuke finally feels what he avoided for years: sadness, guilt, grief, regret, not as punishment, but as a return to humanity. Feeling hurts more than hating, but feeling also reconnects. The guilt that arises in Sasuke is not moralistic. It is existential. It is not, I did something wrong. It is, I have become someone I don't recognize. This guilt signals something important: the return of ethical consciousness. Sasuke no longer wants to destroy the world to justify his own pain. He begins to accept a hard truth: nothing he does will bring the clan back. Naruto Uzumaki represents something unique: someone who saw the worst and still did not abandon him. Psychologically, Naruto is a corrective bond. He proves that attachment does not have to end in loss. Love does not require destruction. Strength can coexist with empathy. For Sasuke, this is almost unbearable, because it demands something new: to trust again. Here is an essential point. Sasuke is not redeemed because others forgive him. He is redeemed because he takes responsibility. Psychological redemption is not erasing the mistake. It is carrying its consequences without running away. That is why Sasuke chooses exile. Not as punishment, but as integration. He needs to walk with what he has become without denying it. Before, solitude was escape. Now it is a conscious choice. Sasuke travels the world not to isolate himself, but to understand who he is without hatred. Integrating pain is different from fighting it. He does not try to forget the clan. He learns to carry it without losing himself. Sasuke stops being the survivor, the avenger, the bearer of hatred, and slowly begins to be simply someone alive. This is frightening, because living without a label is harder than fighting. But it is in this fragile space that true identity is born. There is a comforting idea that, over time, pain diminishes. But this is not true for every kind of loss. Some pains do not weaken. They only change language. Sasuke Uchiha's pain was never resolved. It was pushed inward, compressed, forcefully organized. The clan massacre did not end that night. It continued happening silently, every day. When Sasuke loses his clan, he does not lose only people. He loses the memories that would still be created, the future versions of himself, the continuity of his own story. This creates a specific kind of suffering: the pain of interrupted time. Nothing moves forward normally after that. The body grows, the mind struggles, but something remains frozen in that night. Sasuke lives, but a part of him remains a child, staring at bodies on the ground, not understanding why. Some pains ease when shared. Others do not survive language. How do you explain losing everything to someone who still has something? Sasuke does not speak of the pain, because speaking would require making it real again. Silence is not pride. It is protection. When he stays silent, it is not because he doesn't feel. It is because he feels too much. Over time, pain stops being something you feel and becomes something you are. Sasuke does not wake up thinking about the massacre. He simply acts like someone who lost everything: the rigidity, the distrust, the emotional distance. These are not conscious choices. They are deep adaptations. Pain does not scream. It organizes behavior. Redemption does not heal trauma. It only creates space so that trauma no longer controls everything. Even after changing paths, Sasuke continues to carry the weight of the clan. Because loving again hurts, creating bonds hurts, belonging hurts. Redemption does not erase the wound. It teaches you how to walk without bleeding at every step. For Sasuke, forgetting would be betrayal. Pain becomes a memorial. Every step he takes carries the names that are no longer there. And this explains something essential. He does not seek ordinary happiness. He seeks inner coherence. To live in a way that pain makes sense, not in a way that it disappears. Sasuke's pain is not anger. It is not hatred. It is not revenge. Those were only emotional disguises. The real pain is this: to lose everything too early and never have had someone to teach how to stay alive after that. Maybe you also carry a pain that never went away. Maybe you learned how to function, but not how to rest. Like Sasuke, you may have moved forward without ever truly being held. And maybe, just maybe, the first step is not to overcome, but to recognize. Sasuke Uchiha's pain never asks for attention. It does not show itself in screams. It does not demand care. It shows itself in the rigidity of his gaze, in the economy of words, in the inability to rest emotionally. There are pains that express themselves, and there are pains that organize an entire life without ever announcing themselves. Sasuke's is like that. One of the deepest wounds of trauma is not what was lost, but what can never be recovered. Sasuke cannot return to being the child who trusted the world. He cannot feel safety without suspicion. He cannot love without fearing losing everything again. This creates a nostalgia without an object, a longing for oneself. And this longing hurts more than the memory of the massacre. After losing everything, the mind learns to stay on watch. Sasuke is always alert, always prepared for the worst, always expecting something to end. This is not pessimism, it is conditioning. When the world has already ended once, the mind refuses to be surprised again. This vigilance is exhausting, but abandoning it feels even more dangerous. For Sasuke, love was never something light. To love means to create roots, and roots, for someone traumatized, are points of vulnerability. That is why he distances himself, not out of contempt, but out of fear. Not the fear of losing the other, but of reliving the internal collapse that comes with loss. The Uchiha clan died without farewell, without emotional mourning, without space to cry. Sasuke never had a closing ritual, and grief without ritual gets trapped in the body. It appears as tension, as insomnia, as displaced anger. Unresolved pain searches for improvised exits. Even after the battles, the choices, the redemption, the pain remains. Because it was not tied to what Sasuke did, but to what Sasuke lost. And total losses are not overcome. They are integrated. You learn to live with them without letting them define every decision. This is the real inner work. Sasuke is the last one. Being the last is not honor, it is weight. It means being the sole guardian of stories that can no longer be confirmed by anyone else. It means remembering alone. And remembering alone is a silent form of suffering. If the pain disappeared completely, the clan would disappear with it. And Sasuke knows this even if he never says it. Pain becomes proof that it existed, that love existed, that the bond was real. That is why it remains. Not as punishment, but as witness. Maybe the goal was never to eliminate pain. Maybe the goal is not to lose yourself within it. Sasuke does not seek a life without pain. He seeks a life in which pain no longer needs to scream to be recognized. Sasuke's pain was not defeated. It was not healed in the common sense of the word. It was integrated. That is the most important point. To overcome here does not mean to stop feeling. It means to stop being controlled. For a long time, pain ruled. It chose the path. It dictated the choices. The overcoming begins when Sasuke does something simple and profoundly difficult. He stops running from his own pain. Sasuke spends years trying to change the past. Revenge is that, a desperate attempt to reorganize what has already been broken. But the past does not respond. Pain begins to lose strength when he accepts a hard truth. Nothing I do will bring my clan back. This acceptance is not giving up. It is emotional maturity. While you fight what happened, pain multiplies. When you accept it, it begins to settle. Sasuke does not forgive himself easily, but he also stops destroying himself. He understands that. Making mistakes does not erase the original pain, but continuing to make them does not honor it, so he chooses responsibility, not punishment. This is essential for those who suffer. Excessive guilt is not repentance. It is another form of inner violence. Sasuke learns to carry the weight without using the weight to hurt himself. Sasuke's pain begins to change when he accepts something new. Someone staying, even knowing his worst side. Naruto does not try to erase the pain. He does not try to fix Sasuke. He simply stays. For those who suffer, this is transformative. Pain does not diminish when someone gives you answers. It diminishes when someone does not leave. Sasuke does not turn pain into hatred again. He turns it into conscious vigilance. He begins to protect the world not because he believes in it, but because he knows what happens when everything is lost. This is resignification. Pain stops being only a wound and becomes a reference. I know how much this hurts, so I will not let it happen again. What Sasuke's story teaches those who are suffering. If you are going through a moment of deep pain, Sasuke's story does not say, "It will pass." It says something more honest. You don't need to be okay to keep going. You don't need to forget to move forward. You don't need to shut yourself off to survive. You don't need to punish yourself to honor what you lost. Pain does not require you to destroy yourself. It requires you to be truthful with it. Sasuke does not become happy in the common sense. He becomes whole. Whole with scars. Whole with silence. Whole with memory. And that is enough. For those who are suffering now, maybe the path is not to overcome, but to stop abandoning yourself. If you lost something that felt like everything, feel you will never be the same. Feel that pain has shaped who you are. You are not broken. You are marked. And marks do not block the path. They only change the way you walk. Like Sasuke, you may not forget, but you can move forward without bleeding at every step. Here, overcoming is not erasing pain. It is learning to live without letting it destroy everything around you. And the story of Sasuke Uchiha is not about hatred, revenge, or strength. It is about someone who lost everything, and even so, chose not to lose himself. In silence.